Hey, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another patch notes breakdown. This time around, it's only me and Counterfeit.
Oh, that's me. Hello. Are we going with Jesper or Daedalus for this one?
Well, I'll just introduce us. I'm Jesper Daedalus Kunz, joined by Peter Counterfeit Hartnell, and throughout this video, I'm just gonna be called Jesper. That guy
Okay.
up there is gonna be called Peter. Hi.
Hi. Well, let's get to business then. We've got these 9.5 notes fresh out of the oven. And before we even really get into patch notes, of course, we've got the reworks on Kale and Morgana to discuss.
Yeah, we do. So yeah, Kale and Morgana has been reworked. Kale, I don't think she really got anything new except for more movement speed towards enemies on her ult. Kale,
Morgana,
yeah, sorry,
that is.
Morgana, yes. And then Kale, she got reworked a lot. Peter is what like a new passive, and then all of her abilities got shifted somewhat, but are still more or less the same.
Yeah, she's. I mean, I know this has been kind of been a hot topic of discussion already because she's. I mean, I don't know how much of this is really a dramatic change from before, but she is super hard on the scaling side of things now.
Yeah, she really is. Now, for you who aren't aware, her passive now, whenever you like get to level 6, 11, and 16, so basically whenever you ult up your ult, you get a new like extra benefit from your passive. So like at level 6, you get the Exalted, which means that whenever you stack up, your basic attacks will launch additional waves of fire in the
Oh,
target direction, or is it? Yeah, it is. It's when you have from level 1. Let probably start there. At level 1, you can stack up your basic attacks, and then you can get more attack speed. And then you become exalted when you have 5 stacks, I think. Yeah, 5 stacks. And then
yes.
then at level 6, when you're exalted, when you have 5 stacks, you're gonna deal AOE damage on auto attacks.
Yeah, so that's another. Oh man, there's so many terms to remember as far as passive. So yeah, so zealous is the basic passive.
Mm-hmm.
Exalted is Kale at full stacks. A flame is the level 6 when those exalted basic attacks now get AD and AP scaling as well as AOE. And then beyond that, we've got Arisen at level 11, which is I guess a little easier to pass because Kale goes from being a melee champion, which may be alarming to you guys who haven't looked at this yet, who are former Kale players. You've gone from being up until level 11, you've gone from being partially ranged to entirely melee up until that point. And then you get some extra bonus attack speed as well. Uh,
Yes.
I mean, yes, but what do you make of making a champion who's kind of half ranged into full melee for about half the game?
Oh, I like the idea because it means you still keep the identity of the old Kale. I think it's going to be an interesting challenge to figure out how to build Kale in terms of items because, like, I would initially probably go for like a Ravenous Hydra or a Titanic Hydra. Probably not Titanic, but Ravenous could make a lot of sense. But since you,
I don't think you can use the Titanic.
sorry,
I don't think you can even use the Titanic, can you? Oh no,
uh,
of course you
you
can, but
you
you won't be able
can
to later on.
when you can when you're melee, but then when you turn ranged, you can't. Like you kind of want to have that health, I would assume initially, just because you want to get through the laning phase. But then when you turn ranged, suddenly you can't use this item anymore, and that's kind of weird because it feels weird to be a top laner who wants to get to the late game, but you can't even build anything that'll help you in the early game. So you kind of give up everything. Uh, but with that being said, like her ganking prowess in terms of helping her jungler is quite good because she has to execute from her the Starfire Spellblade. She has what like movement speed booster from her W Celestial Blessing, and even her Q will slow people. Will slow people.
Well, why don't we? Because we haven't had a chance to go through what the abilities actually are as of yet. So why don't we just quickly run through them before we come back to that? So we've got the Q, the Radiant Blast, which is roughly similar to what it was before, just kind of like I think now it's in the grand old tradition from Riot of making everything into a skill shot. It's basically taking her old Q ability, which was point and click, and turning it into a skill shot.
Yes. Celestial Blessing, basically just a heal, which will also give you bonus movement speed. And you can use it on yourself, or you can use it on the target. And then the Starfire Spellblade is basically kind of like her old Q, but I think it's just where you activate it, then your next basic attack will deal bonus magic damage, and once you become a ranged champion, I think it also gives you execute damage. Plus, when you're when you're arisen,
That's level 11.
Yes, when you're a flame, it's going to deal AoE damage, and the flame is level 6.
Yes, so part of this is that the Starfire Spellblade, similar to how KO was before, will let you turn into a ranged champion for that one auto attack, up until the point where you're ranged all the time, and then I guess it just doesn't do that. It just does a bit more damage. Like and Daedalus, I guess what I'm kind of where I've been getting from all these abilities is like, I know this is like a relatively substantial rework, but to me, at least these basic abilities are pretty like, particularly Celestial Blessing is just a straightforward heal. I mean, now it can heal you and someone else, but like, that's pretty basic. And the Starfire Spellblade, just enhance one auto attack to give it range. It's like, I don't know. Yeah, but the ultimate at least is more interesting.
Yes, the ultimate Divine Judgment. Basically like the old Kale ult, but now you also get swords that will fall to the ground and deal magic damage. But yeah, like to hit on what you just said, Peter, I think that you're definitely right in that it is boring, but it enhances her ability to be that late game carry, especially when you get that execute damage and the extra passive damage from the Starfire Spellblade. Like, the whole kit is built around her getting to level 16 and then starting to wreak havoc. But like, it's just going to be so hard to get to that point.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I can't really think of too many. I mean, if you're looking for the idea of someone you build up during the course of the game, you've already kind of got Nasus.
Well, you also have Kassadin.
Yeah, as in you've kind of already got that idea in play. I don't really know why they thought that, having a champion effectively just not be a champion for a good half of the game was a fun experience. But I mean, maybe the whole thing is that you can bring in if you can be much stronger in the very late game when your team's already lost, like, that's one thing. But I'm kind of surprised they didn't just give her, because Kayla already had this pre-existing idea of when her E was active, that she was a lot stronger than when her E was not active, of just being able to say you can have these big bursts of effectiveness throughout the game, which, I mean, I guess is sort of in play if you can keep stacking up your auto attacks and get your passive going. But for the most part, it feels like, at least until level 11, and like, you're going to struggle to get those auto attacks in against another top laner who can actually, I don't know, do things. Unlike you, as Kale, who just gets to sit under your tower
against the Renekton, against the Yasuo, Irelia, Camille. Like, you're just gonna be pushed on the tower all the time. And you're definitely right that it feels like once you get to level 11, then you can start to fight. And before that, you're just, like, non-existent. And it's true. And for Kale, I also feel like that you want to hit a 3 to 4 item power spike, I could imagine at least. Before you really get relevant, because that's when you get that level 11 to 16. But getting to that point is just going to be very hard, because you're not going to have any relevancy in the laning phase. You're not going to be able to farm, because you're going to be pushed on the tower all the time, and your opponent is probably going to get turret plating unless you get a lot of help from your jungler, which just means that your jungler is investing into helping you get to the late game, and thus neglecting the other lanes.
But yeah, I guess we've kind of covered Kale relatively well. I guess we'll have to see how she plays out. Maybe she'll turn up somewhere weird like the jungle, or as a support. Like, you never know.
Or the mid lane, where everyone goes nowadays. But yeah,
If Galio can do it, why not?
yeah. But yeah, not too much to talk about with Morgana except that she's prettier now and gets get movement speed when she ults. So I'm thinking, Peter, how about we just jump to Akali?
Yeah. Oh, Akali.
Good old Akali. So now, guys, her ring movement speed durations have been increased. And stealth from turrets has been adjusted. E damage increased and R cooldown decreased.
I do like given how problematic Twilight Shroud was before. I'm not like terribly upset to see them try and inch their way back into having Twilight Shroud be a ability that's not heinously stupid.
What I really like is really that Twilight Shroud, and especially the thing about her just having to like exit and re-enter her shroud in order to extend the duration by 3 seconds instead of having to like walk out and in for like 6 times in order to extend the time. I think that'll give her a bit more playmaking potential when using that Twilight Shroud. Is when you're going aggressive at least.
I'm not sure I'm a fan of that. I don't play enough Akali to really know for certain, but like, it felt like you were kind of encouraged to use the Twilight Shroud in a ninja-like fashion by going in and out of it, giving people the chance to actually attack, like go after you in some fashion. But now that you don't need to do that anymore, they basically just removed that whole idea.
Well, like, she's still a ninja. She's hiding in the shroud.
But I mean, she's not incentivized to fight like a ninja. She's just incentivized to hide in there. Which is, I mean, that's fine. But
to be fair, isn't she more like an assassin than a ninja?
I think ninja assassin is definitely a thing.
Sure. Yeah. I can see what you're saying. I'm a big fan of the perfect execution change as well, because I feel like a big part of Akali is when she's able to burst you down. And obviously 2 minutes of your ult in the early game. I think in general 2 minutes is too long. Now it's like 1 minute and 40 seconds. Yeah, 1 minute and 40 seconds. Like it's not too bad. It's still high and you still get that playmaking potential. And it's not a minute in the late game at level 16 like I think it used to be.
Yeah, I think that's relatively fair. I mean, if we're kind of working the idea that she needs to kind of get a little bit more going in the early game, then having lower cooldown makes sense. There's also the changes to Shuriken Flip, giving her a little bit more damage. I think from what Freak was saying, that it's still not worth really kind of going heavily into it, but it's nice to have a bit of extra damage in the earlier going.
Yeah, of course it is. But yeah. Moving on to Nico, did you watch the Cloud9 versus TSM match this weekend?
No, I haven't had a chance to do that. Wait, was that played in this patch?
No, that was played on 9.4.
Okay, I was going to say, I would be very surprised they used it already.
But Broken Blade played Nico. I hope I'm not spoiling anything for you.
That's fine.
Okay, well, he played Nico, and then one thing that I think was Kobe highlighted was that Broken Blade tried to line up his E to tangle barbs so that it would hit as many minions before hitting the champion, because it's more effective when you've hit at least 2 enemies. Now,
yes, needlessly complicated, we might describe that as.
Exactly right. And I love this change, because now it means you just need to hit 1 enemy. So it makes it a bit easier, it's a bit more quality of life changes to this one, or a quality of life change, so that you don't have to have this ridiculously crazy hit in terms of minions before you can actually hit the champion.
Yeah, if we're comparing duration before, so in real terms, on the previous Tangle Barbs, we're looking at 0.5 on the first enemy, so that's being extended by 0.2. So yeah,
but yeah, it's basically the same stats as before. Now you just remove that one about hitting all enemies except the last champion hit.
Yeah, so you just need to be able to. It's like a double up for Misfortune.
Yeah, you just need to be able to hit 1 minion and then hit a champion.
That is a big route, though. Like that feels like that's a pretty substantial buff to Nico.
I
Like,
Yeah, I think you're right, but then again, Nico sucks.
well,
So
people were talking about her as a support because I know that she can be played pretty much in any position.
yeah,
But like, if you're playing support, then I guess you're going to be putting a lot more points into the tangle barbs early, and you get rewarded pretty heavily. I mean, if once you can get up to full stat, full rank E, 3 second root is pretty stupid.
it's going to be very strong if you play her as a support and then have a gank incoming. So I can see that work. And I would much rather see her being played as a support than as a top laner like Broken Blade did last weekend. I think as a top laner she works pretty well in the early game because you can poke people so hard. Like you fall off crazily hard as well.
Yeah, she seems like she was a big experiment for Riot. I'm not sure that experiment's really paying off, and I don't know if it ever will. But I'm glad they tried, even if it's gonna be something weird for a long time.
It kind of feels like she's a mixture of a Zoe and a Lux to me, but just a worse version of those two.
Yeah, I think she might end up being reworked at some point to kind of take the things that they've learned over the course of just adjusting her backwards and forwards and trying to bring all those lessons into a more coherent whole, as opposed to just fiddling things backwards and forwards. But I don't know.
Yeah, well, I'm happy we can agree on the fact that she sucks. Thumbs up, Peter. But yeah, moving on to Rakan, the most manly of mans. No, that's probably Brom and you. But nice. W damage and dash speed increased on Rakan. So basically, they made the dash on the grand entrance scale off of the type of boots that you had, which meant that you had 1400 dash speed when you had no boots, and then it just scaled up. Now you're just getting 1500 flat.
Yeah, you can look at the numbers there and say it's not exactly a huge difference between what kind of boots you had. I'm okay to see a little bit of power back onto Rakan. I mean, I think the big thing they were trying to keep off from them was to try and keep the alt, engage from being quite as ludicrous. Well, in fact, yeah, they've got it in the notes here, keeping it as RW initiation, which was just some of the craziest thing you've ever seen, just to go across nearly an entire screen's worth of real estate before coming in with a very hard to avoid engage. So yeah, I'm okay if that's kept at bay while giving him back a little more power. It's good with me.
Yeah, I like the change. In terms of if he needed more damage, I'm not quite sure. Like, I don't think that giving
it's not a lot.
Yeah, it's not like he needed more damage on his W. It was more the dash speed, and well, you're right, Peter. It keeps it more in check. Now Skarner, a different guy. His passive has been changed.
Yes, so instead of his passive literally providing an early warning system as to when Skarner was invading your jungle, which feels like it's a little counterintuitive.
Yeah.
At least now that people will have to physically move their screen to see that, and I think it's certainly at the lower end. Like, I don't know if that's going to impact that much in competitive, because I imagine people will be just doing that as a matter of course. But at least you don't get immediately warm when that's the case.
Yeah. That's true. And then also now with it getting buffed so that the red buff Spire is now in range of both Crocs and Raptors, his clear speed is going to go up so hard. Well, I say that. I haven't tested it yet, guys. But I could imagine that if you have that buff from the Spire, which is basically like movement speed and attack speed, if I remember correctly, then your
mana regen.
And mana regen, and then your clear speed is going to go up a lot, because suddenly you can clear 3 camps much faster when you could only clear 1 before.
Well, yeah, I mean, previously you just didn't really do that extra camp because you just weren't in range of it, and the amount of time it would take you to do it was, yeah. I'm not a huge fan of Skarner's design and the idea that, well, I mean, maybe this is a bit
You don't like the mini games.
Well, it's more that he feels really good at some points and terrible at others, which I was going to say is a little hypocritical of me to say, given that was exactly what I was suggesting for Kale. What's worth noting though as well it looks like the spire radius has generally gone up by a chunk on all of them.
It's
I'm
gone
not
up
100%.
of 550 on all of them.
Yeah, like that's considering that Skarner is amazing in those spire radiuses and pretty blah outside of them. Like that's not just going to be that Krugs or Raptors that it impacts.
Yeah, it's also going to impact his ability to invade his enemy, because now you get more movement speed across the river. Like that's going to
Yeah.
be an interesting thing to watch out for as well.
Yeah, I think we'll probably start actually seeing Skarner a little bit more,
Yeah,
especially since this patch is coming in today. So, yeah, we'll see if people pick up on it quickly.
yeah. But then having Y being buffed is something I'm happy about, because damn, if I haven't played a lot of Y in the past. I love this champion. Now she's having her attack speed growth decreased. She's having a lot of changes overall, basically to every single ability and passive that she has.
Well, you don't that Vi players aren't necessarily 100% on board with these changes.
I know, but I want to see her back, and if Riot is changing her, then I'm happy.
Well, apparently she's never went anywhere really. Her win rate is apparently pretty good, like as it stands. But these changes are, she's got more incentive to build more health with the blast shield being, giving her more of a shield. Though there's this whole thing that they stripped away some of the bonus attack damage from her, so I guess less incentivized to build warrior and go heavy AD and effectively just be an assassin. But at the same time, I don't know quite like where you would get attack speed along with health outside of maybe Trinity Force.
Yeah, and she used to build the Trinity Force as well. I haven't seen her how you build her in a long time, but I could imagine that you would go for a Trinity Force or a Warriors into a Titanic. I would probably say
Potentially.
Yeah, but but you're definitely right that it feels weird that you're forcing her to be a tank when she's more like a bruiser just from her character model and her abilities.
Well, I guess she's going to end up being kind of a diver now that she can survive for a certain amount of time. As long as she keeps proccing the denting blows, then she'll keep getting. I guess she can potentially get 2 shields off as the whole.
But the problem is that with her denting blows, you have a bit more attack speed now, of course, but still, it lowers the cooldown of a blast shield, but you're not really going to be able to proc too many denting blows in team fights. At least I could imagine, simply because it's a 3-hit passive, so you're not going to be able to get more than 1 off. I could imagine maybe 2, depending on how close down your opponents are, how much CC you put on them.
Yes, well, I mean, if you're talking about at max level, you're talking like a 12-second cooldown on the blast shield, so you need to maybe set off the denting blows a couple of times before it's relevantly going to be back up more than once. So, I don't know. Also, excessive force getting critical strike. Yes.
Nice. My full crit Vi is now viable.
Yes. Apparently there were enough people who played critical strike Vi that they left that.
Well, there was also some people playing ability power Y because they upped the ability power on her E.
I can live with that, honestly, but
yeah,
it's goofy as heck. Goofy as heck.
It is. I'm not sure how I feel about her ult, because upping the cooldown on that feels like you're gonna limit her playmaking potential, especially when you're forcing her to be a playmaker now, which I feel like is counterintuitive.
Well, also, think about this in combination with the fact that they're encouraging her to go more tanky, where there's less liberal cooldown in the items. So, for example, Synhulk doesn't give you any cooldown reduction. Warrior does.
Well, if you're going tanky, you're just going to be useless as a Vi. You have all of these abilities giving you incentive to go for AD, but if you're going for a Cinderhulk, you're not going to get any of that. You're not going to get any bonuses out of your abilities. Like you're just gonna be useless up until the team fights if you go tank.
Well, I mean, with the less attack damage, total attack damage, I guess, at least you're not missing out quite in that respect. But one of the R changes, which is quite easy to miss right at the end of it, it's a secondary target knockback. So that's the knocking. So if she died, because I kind of feel like one of the things which is, I would imagine, should be defining Vi is the thing of her diving through a whole team to get to the opposing AD carry or similar.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's more rewarding because she's got a bigger kind of channel that she cuts, so it's gone from 250 to 350. So I don't sure that's gonna. I guess it would catch people who would have otherwise just gotten away with it, but it also does it over a longer period of time. So it's more impactful when she runs for the opposing team, which I think that's really cool because that's the part where you really notice Vi's in the fight.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't really have anything more to add to Vi, so let's move on to. I don't think we need to talk about the audio updates for Lucian. So Relic Shield. Basically,
kicked in the nuts.
Yes, cutting it down, less health, a lot less health now. Like it's gonna give you more power when you're behind. So it's actually a healing tool instead of being, hey, I'm ahead, I can heal you for a lot. Even if you're missing health, I can still heal you for a lot. So it's going to be less good for people who are ahead, and still relatively good for people who are behind.
Well, Freak ran the numbers on it, and it's a pretty heavy kicking to the Relic Shield. Like you have to be almost you have to be very damaged to be getting the same amount of healing you would be getting out of Relic Shield or currently or previously, I suppose. So apparently it's because the Relic tank supports in competitive are everywhere and super, super, super effective. I think because the coordination is much better between the teams. But yeah, I guess this is mainly aimed there, but I suppose apparently in solo queue, range supports are much more popular, so maybe we won't even notice this.
Yeah, maybe we won't, but I think that you mentioned it with Freak, how he ran the numbers, and it's definitely going to be something that'll take down the tanks a notch, and we're gonna see that a bit later with some bug fixing as well. But Stormraiser basically just giving it more power in the early game, so people might buy it, but I don't think this will make a big difference. It's 5 attack damage, it's 5 attack speed, and I think the only one who would really use it would be Jhin and Saya to some extent. But even with Saya, you still want that Infinity Edge because you're a late game AD carry.
Yeah, I mean this LS really laid into Stormraiser as being just an item which I think even with these buffs, I think Freak had a similar idea as well, even less I'm meshing the two together in my mind, that with this as an enhancer for the energized effects, the fact that it doesn't have any crit itself is problematic.
Yeah, nobody wants to buy it because crit is strong right now.
Was a crit enhancing item that doesn't have crit on it.
Yeah, it doesn't give you any incentive to actually scale into the late game.
Yeah, so maybe that'll change in the future, but for now, I got the impression it probably still wasn't going to get to see a lot of usage.
Yeah. Aftershock getting some bug fixing. Basically just bug fixing. Not a lot to add to there.
I guess it's a good thing that I didn't realize that bug did exist.
Yeah, well, it's good that they noticed it, right? But yeah, it's basically just bug fixing. Now it actually does what it is supposed to do.
Yeah.
And then
also Aftershock sucks.
Sorry?
Not Aftershock sucks. Not in a that it's bad, in that it's, I think, just a dumb ability.
Yeah.
But that's
I agree with you. It's a lot of damage and a lot of tankiness for doing literally nothing.
LS had the thought of trying to restricting the effect down a bit if you're a ranged champion to try and take off some of the obviously unintended effects, but I'm thinking the longer that Aftershock stays in its current form in the game, the more that you'll have champions and decisions being made around the fact that it exists. Well, like Lissandra. Presumably they wouldn't intend it for Lissandra to be a primary Aftershock user, but now that she is, presumably anything you change about Aftershock is also going to change Lysandra.
Yeah, yeah, I like that thought. Conquer basically just to notice people about how they hot fixed it in the middle of the last patch, giving it less power because damn was it strong when it first came out, and someone like Draven, who else did we see?
Everybody.
Yeah, basically everyone who could run it would run it. Yeah, basically, yeah. It's like it just needed to be hard fixed because it was too strong, too damn strong.
Well, I mean, it's been hot fixed mid 9.4, and now it's been hit pretty hard in 9.5. I mean, it certainly reads like something that's
Oh
been gutted.
yeah, you're right. Sorry, I misread that. Yeah, so it used to be 3 to 15, then it got changed to 2 to 10, and now 2 to 6.
Yeah, I mean, I think like a lot of the masteries they put them in. I don't know if it's intentionally too strongly, but I feel like there's a lot of incentive for them to put them in too strong to get people to actually use them and then dial back, rather than making them too weak and having nobody use them and therefore getting no data.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think from what I've heard, Conquer is still going to be usable on the champions it's probably more intended for, rather than just everybody.
Yeah. And then Cut Down is being changed so that it has a bit more damage, so it can actually be competitive with Coup de Grace and Last Stand.
Yeah, so this is the mastery that nobody uses.
That's the one where if you are against like someone with they're at 40% health, they'll take more damage from you, right?
So no, this is the one that nobody uses, which is that the cut down is dealing more damage to enemies that have more maximum health than you do.
Okay, yeah. So like against tanks is what it is intended to do.
Yes, and even LS got confused by this one because there's three different ones. The three different masters have very similar effects. Coup de grace is dealing more damage to enemies below 40% maximum health.
Oh yeah,
which
that's
is
the one. Yeah.
pretty much always applicable.
Yeah.
When you're in a fight, you've got cut down, which is presumably intended for going after tanks. Which again, if you're taking it as an AD carry or whatever, doesn't do anything for a large part of the game.
Yeah.
And you've got last stand, which is mostly used by Tryndamere, which is deal 5% more damage while you're below 60% health. And that gets better the closer you are to 30%. So basically a Tryndamere mastery.
Yeah. And now Cut Down might be a thing. I don't think it'll really come into effect because, as you said, there's no way that you can actually use it throughout the game. Like, Coup de Grace will always be better. Even if the trade-off is better for Cut Down in the late game, you'd rather have something that would enhance your ability to kill people in the early game.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, maybe I like that it's getting some attention at least.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they'll remake it at some point to be more generally applicable. But yeah, something that only does something outside of the laning phase, or presumably at least something noticeable outside the laning phase, just seems strange.
Yeah. Well, moving on to the symbol changes, because I know you're
Hurrah!
a simple man, Peter.
I am.
So yeah, how do you feel about Cho'Gath, the symbol champion?
So this isn't a huge. Well, this isn't as much as it's a simple change. Some of these changes are quite big. I think the Vorpal spikes getting more hits, which is has been pointed out, I think, by Freak, that this is a little bit more than it appears. I mean, at the moment, like look at that, it doesn't look like anything, but you are getting 3 lots of the Vorpal spikes for each cast, so it's a little bit more. But yeah, you've got max health damage on Vorpal spikes, meaning that this difference is probably fairly invisible, except for maybe slightly more wave clear and stuff. I don't know.
Just a bit more health in the early game, but yeah, it's not a lot. However, I think Dr. Mundo's change is quite good. Like it's a lot when you get into the late game, and that's where Dr. Mundo wants to shine. You're going from what, like 30% extra magic resistance in the late game to 42. That's 12% extra. That's a lot.
It's crazy, and as has been pointed out by other guys who are doing patch reviews on this, it's quite possible to end up in a situation where the opposing team has nearly all AP characters, and or at least magic damage. For the big example was given, and this is pretty easy to do.
This from TSM and C9, right?
Oh, I haven't seen that one, but
I thought you were going to use that example. Just to let you guys.
It could well be coming from the same place.
I can let you guys know. TSM versus C9. If you had a Dr. Mundo on the side of Cloud9, then he would have been very effective because TSM, they had a Gragas, a Nico, and a Zoe. Just saying.
Well, even with more conventional picks, if you hit the AD champion pool and make the other side take Ezreal, all but one of his abilities are magic damage.
Yeah. And then you still have Lissandra as a possibility. There's more or less only AP damage type of champions in the mid lane. And you can force an AP up into the top side too. Or tank. Yeah. Then suddenly Dr. Mundo is crazy. And he will go where he pleases.
If you can have flex picks so that you could have, you could suggest that you're going to have something which will go up to the top side. Mm-hmm. And then from, just by Dr. Mundo existing, presumably that means that, those kind of team compositions are going to be in much more danger of having the last pick Mundo come up and be like, oh, we forgot that was a thing, and now we're probably going to lose.
Yes, which means that he will definitely be a viable pick come this patch. Whether you see a lot of play, I don't necessarily think so. He will be situational, but it is a possibility. Gangplank, Peter. R. E bonus damage to champions increased and R damage per wave increased. So a bit more power so he can actually fight back against people in subside.
I think I got the impression he was kind of decent already. It's worth noting that the powder keg damage increase is just to champions as opposed to wave clear.
Yeah. It's hard to say that he was decent because we never really saw him come back, and I think basically it's because what you want from a top laner is usually either someone who can win hard or someone who can stay safe, because then you can focus on other lanes. And Gangplank is really neither of those picks because he scales very late, so it's not someone you can rely on in the early game. And he can stay somewhat safe with the wave clear and his ult, but even then, he's not as safe as, let's say, a Sion.
That's true. I mean, Jace is certainly... I feel like Jace maybe fills in the same kind of role, but does it a bit better.
I think that's fair to say.
Well, the buffs to the Cannon Barrage as well, I think, are, again, a little bit more significant than they initially appear because of the various ways you can enhance the Cannon Barrage. So getting a little bit more damage on there when you can, potentially multiply that up a bit. I don't know. I don't hate the idea of seeing Gangplank back in play again.
No, he's always interesting to see. And then looking down at Graves, just quickly glancing over that, it's 3 more damage on his attack damage. Basically what they're saying is because he was hit very hard by their changes to the jungle in 9.2, so now giving him a bit more damage to work with might help him get back.
It's also a meme, and I think that's the main reason they did it.
If it's a meme?
Yeah, -3 AD. Just read the notes they've got above there. Like, the whole thing was that it was a kind of a laughable amount of AD was taken off of him before when he was really obnoxious, and apparently it was enough. And so now they're going to risk bringing Graves back again with this very, very tiny buff.
Okay, that's how it's a meme. Okay, I didn't realize. I live under a rock, guys, in case you didn't know. Moving on to Jhin, nothing more to add. Q damage increased onto Jhin.
Very slightly.
It's a fine thing, but it's really nothing to talk about. It's not a big change. You get you get 0.05 extra AD on your max level Q.
Well, I mean, he is going to be able to multiply that up. I'm just checking the exact numbers on how Jhin.
Hell, even if he's going to multiply it up, it's still 0.05 extra total AD. It's what? Can you do the math real quick? Because I'm okay. Let me tell you. So if you take what like
There's
100,
35% extra damage total for each thing that dancing grenade manages to kill along the way. It will dance for it will hit and then dance 3 more times. So, I mean, I don't know.
if you have 100 AD, you're gonna get what like 100 and you're gonna 100.05 AD. That's as much AD I think you're gonna get. If my math isn't
That is definitely not right.
Yeah, that's probably wrong. But okay.
I don't know, but yeah, you're right that it's probably not going to be major. I don't think we'd see Jin necessarily back in again. Like, if there was going to be anything that brought him back in, it's probably not going to be this.
There we go. Now my math is right. You're going to get 5 extra AD.
Hurrah!
You're going to get 5 extra AD when you have 100 AD. Like you're not gonna get 100 AD at a time where 5 AD is gonna matter.
Hey man, don't look a gift grenade in the mouth.
You talk about 3 extra AD on Grace being a meme.
Oh man,
this is a meme.
So what you're saying is that Jin needs 3 extra AD. Is that what you're saying?
That would make more sense. It would give him more it would help him more to get 3 AD than dodge 0.5.
I don't know. We probably can't do maths. Anyway, let's move on before you lose your mind.
Nunu and Willump. Peter, take it.
Nerfed. Probably deserves it. I mean, yeah, it's from what I've been hearing and a little bit seeing that Nunu's and Willump seems to be too strong. So I don't mind that. It doesn't seem like it's the. It's quite a big hit considering that it starts to.
It's a big hit
up
in the late game, right?
Yeah, like that's 40 damage off is quite a lot.
It's 40 health, or sorry, healing.
That's right. That's right. It's the healing, isn't it? Not the actual damage.
Yeah. So it's more. Oh, sorry, less sustained in the late game. It's less power in the early game. I feel like I haven't seen a lot of Nunu. I have to admit. But what I've seen of him has basically given me the idea that he's very, very strong if you're against a jungler that can't punish you in the early game. Like if you're not against the Olaf, Lee Sin, Kha'Zix, stuff like that. If you're not going to get punished, then this guy can be very obnoxious.
Well, it's another thing to consider as well is that the consume doubles up if you're below a certain below I think 50% health.
Yeah.
So that's going to be, that will make that more of a noticeable nerf considering that you're dropping potentially 80 heal at like level 9 onwards. Like that's quite a big hit, but it's quite possible that he needs it.
Yeah.
Or they need it.
Yep. Well, I think that covers Nunu and Willump. So Peter, I know you're very passionate about Tryndamere.
Oh man, there was a guide back in the day that was this guy role-playing Tryndamere, and it was amazing. I tried to find it, and I don't think it exists anymore. It was the Path to Manhood, where the person would role-play the whole way through the Tryndamere game, and it was brilliant. But the big
do you remember that time when we actually played we played a League of Legends game where I was forced to go into the top side, and I was like, Peter, I have this. You told me that we could swap around if I wanted to. And then I said, I'm going to play Tryndamere. I used to play this guy a lot back in Season 2 and Season 3, guys, if you didn't know. I played him a lot. I told Peter, I'm going to carry this game. And I ended up dying like 10 times.
I couldn't remember if this was the kind of story where you ended up triumphant or the one where you fed horribly. But I guess that's the Tryndamere story, isn't it? The important point of this change being that once he gets to level 16, he doesn't need more than 2 crit items, which is significant for his builds.
Yeah.
So that's something.
Yeah, it's a small buff. Will probably make him stronger in solo queue. Will it make him stronger in competitive? I do not think so.
Nah, but I mean, I don't think he was ever going to be in. I kind of feel like he's one of those champions that if he got strong in competitive, they would just nerf him.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, he's very much a solo queue-ish champion because if you want him for competitive, you just pick Jax. He does what Tryndamere does, and he does it better.
Tryndamere rework, otherwise we riot.
Hey, Silas! Woo! This guy is someone who's been seeing a lot of play in competitive.
Yes, so the whole change here is to encourage you to not take Kingslayer. Like, because you get more of a heal at level 1, and then you've got more AP scaling, so you can go heavily into Q, which is what you're supposed to be doing now, and have 1 level in Kingslayer, and hopefully that they'll keep the sheer obnoxiousness of the Kingslayer ability at bay for at least a while.
Yeah, and also the tank build from Silas, where you just max that W and you have sustain forever, is ridiculous. And now a bit more incentive to go AP with that extra 10 ability power scaling, ratio. And then less healing is like, it doesn't really mean a lot for you to go as a tank and just go full in on sustain.
I think they've done too much in the way of carrot incentive with Salas, but as in buffing his other parts. I think they needed to really get around to finally doing some stick with just say like, yeah, rather than just making the other ways more appealing, we'll just make the most obnoxious way less appealing.
Touche. Now, Yorick, Counterfeit, I know you like Yorick, right?
My boy, he was so new to being competitive. He wanted to take flight, and now, like, Freak made me mad on this one. He worked out the numbers and saw that it was quite a substantial damage decrease. Like, it was like 20% off of the Maiden's damage.
You have
it was like, that's not a big deal.
There's no base damage on the Maiden anymore, which is also crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it was getting most of its damage from Yorick's total attack damage anyway, but like, it's
well, just for level 1, having no base damage is a huge nerf. Even though you're still getting a lot of the damage from Yorick.
You've got the 2% of target's maximum health stripped away as well, so I suspect Yorick's probably still good. He's just,
less strong in the split push.
Yeah.
And in the 1 versus 1.
If you just arbitrarily decide that half of Yorick is the Maiden of the Mists, and the Maidens become 20% less good, then Yorick has become 10% less good. Which, I mean, I don't know if he really warrants it, but...
Yeah.
Also, this is most alarming. If you've been keeping your eye on the PBE, there's an adorable cat skin coming out for Yorick, which I was going to get, and now I have other ideas. Thank you very much, Rat.
You just lost Peter's wallet, right? You're not gonna get that money.
Big mistake. Think it over again. Hotfix.
So Rek'Sai. Let's talk about Rek'Sai. Basically, they just fixed the bug where her ult could deal damage twice.
Yeah, I mean, that's just directly a bug. I don't know if any... The thing is, like, people can't even abuse that because that was just completely unintentional, so whatever.
Yeah. Good. It seems like we've gotten all the way through, and now there's nothing. There's no skins. I don't want to talk about skins. You're not going to get that chance. You're not going to get that chance.
Oh, Arclight Brand is kind of cool, though.
No,
he looks like a Marvel superhero of some kind.
Oh, I'm going to end the episode here.
That's the only one I care about. But yeah, the stuff that's on PV at the moment, have a look at Surrender at 20 because they've got the cat skins. They've got there's a skin that changes Fizz into a dog. Like literally, like Pugmore, literally changes him into a dog. Doesn't even look like Fizz anymore, which is really dumb. But it looks amazing.
Guys, if you didn't know, I'm actually scared of dogs. And now I get to be scared of Fizz as well, besides him being a big AP mage who can kill me instantly if he wants to. Thank you, Riot. You just lost me as a customer as well.
Oh no! By the end of this patch, he's lost... I mean, at least if we just focus in on this particular area of their audience, Riot have lost their entire audience by the end of this patch. What a disaster.
Damn. Anyways, Peter... Plug your social medias. Whee!
You can find me at Counterfeit Cast anywhere you might happen to look. That's Twitter, Facebook, sort of, YouTube, etc.
Yes. And on Twitch, we both stream from time to time. I do it every Sunday. I think Peter does it whenever he wants to.
Yeah, I don't stick by your rules, man. Schedules of a schmucks.
Hey, man, that's just like your opinion. But yeah, you can find both Peter's social medias and my social medias in the description below. Remember, guys, to go and follow us if you want to see more of what we're doing. But besides that, just follow, like, and subscribe. And I know, what does a blogger say, Peter? Because I know you're a blogger, I think.
Please follow my live journal and subtweet us relentlessly.
Thank you. I'll see you on the next episode, guys. Bye.